Hello. Hello, everyone. Oops.
Hello.
Hi again. And do we have Anthony? We have Anthony. Hey, Anthony, nice to see you. I owe you a phone call. I've been rude about that. I apologize. We do not have quorum, so we're going to do a loose version of our agenda unless we attain quorum. It might not be possible. Christian's out of town. Matthew's out of town. Aaron will have to jump soon. And Stephen can't make it tonight, so we're a bit strapped. But it's a committee, so can't really take any decisions anyway. So let's just talk through the agenda and we can circle back if people join and hit the highlights again. So, announcements from me. Um, Fun administrative thing. Aaron has developed a tool for committee chairs to submit all the little obligatory things every month, which are your committee minutes, your items for cow, and your items for the commission agenda under the committee reports section. So if you're following along in your hymnal, there in 2A, there's a link right into the office form. It's very simple. You put your name in those three things. You can type them in or copy and paste or whatever. We're hoping this streamlines the process. Often have to run around and make sure every committee chair has submitted all three of those items every month. So I think this will make it a little bit easier for us. We don't have to do quite so much record keeping on our end. So please give it a try. Francois, you can be our guinea pig and try to submit today if you want to.
Yeah,
Actually,
sorry. I've just been busy, so I was actually writing you an email. I'll submit them by Friday, but you
I
know,
didn't even know that you hadn't
uh,
yet, but now that you confessed
um,
that,
it was on my to-do list and it just fell right off that to-do list, but I do want to get
great.
them done on time. So,
This has
You know what
been
I
a
realized
very
that,
August.
yeah, yeah.
well, there's that. Cool. Great. Well, use the tool, please, if you would. Actually, I realize that I have to put
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
upload feature for the minutes, which I'll do that afterward. I think that should be pretty simple. So please give it a try. Thank you for guinea pigging. Number two, art all night planning. We have so few people here, but as I mentioned many times in the past, we did vote to sponsor art all night. This means we get a table. We will be, I think, perched outside the Reeves Center is what I saw in an email recently. Rice said, if you have any more details, I think that's as much as we know for now. I wanted us to figure out A, how long we want to provide coverage at that table, and then B, figure out who can be there to provide said coverage. I think it starts, I don't have the thing pulled up right now. Rice, is it at 6 p.m., 7 p.m.?
I do. Let me get the times for you. Normally it's a first come, first spot situation, but they're saving a spot for us. But the setup starts at around 4. And then I believe that they want somebody at the table at all times until 10.
Okay. So do we want to plan to start setting up? Actually, if, I mean, we don't have a lot to set up, so we don't maybe have to be there quite so early, but we want to pick a rally time, at least roughly right now, say, I don't know, 5-ish, 6-ish. I don't know if the event starts at 6 or 7,
Um,
or is it earlier, actually?
Load
Let's see.
in, so load in and setup. Load in is from 3:30 to 4:45. They have setup from 4 to 6. On-site time from 6 to 10. Breakdown at 10. Clear out by 11.
Hmm. Okay. Well, if we follow that roughly,
But to your point, I think if you do setup at 5, you're kind of probably still setting up and getting there when everybody else is there. And so not giving them heartburn about whether or not one of us is going to show up.
right.
And then I assume if you want to end before 10, you just let them know. It's a bring your own everything. So I think we knew that, but just saying it here. I have
Okay.
tablecloths and the some table stuff for us. But as we talked about, we'll need like the table and 2 chairs.
Right. Okay. I had thought of suggesting that we end by 10 at the latest. assuming that we could go later. I don't know if it's because it's this particular section that we're in or whatever, because obviously other stuff goes until 12:1 too.
Right.
But I think people stop learning after 9 or 10. So maybe we plan to cover like 6 to 9 or so, which is nice. I mean, I don't mind being there for setup plus 3 hours. Maybe we can get a couple other people to come for an hour or two at a time and do a couple shifts like that. Do we need to work on getting a table, or did you say that you had a folding item?
Do you mean a physical table?
Yeah.
We have a physical table.
Do you have
Okay.
2 chairs?
Ladre Park runs on folding chairs and tables.
Great.
Man. Okay. So we can take that offline and work on that, but that seems to be a good. Actually, Rice, if you don't mind putting that whole run of show in an
Yep.
email to all the commissioners
Yep.
and ask who's able to attend and for how long.
Yep. Were you also sending
I
it
don't
out
think we need a
to?
tent, right?
I
Because
I
it's evening. The only thing is, in case it's misting, we'll bring one. But otherwise, I don't
in
think
the thing I'm gonna send, I think it tells you some suggested things. So again, one of those things where I think it's up to you on what you want to card in and card out.
okay. All right.
I'm also
Table and
remembering.
chairs. Count on that. We'll bring those.
And
Okay.
then Miguel, I sent you the sign up in case you wanted to use it for others. Or if you just want an email, let me know how I can be helpful there.
Okay. Let's circulate the schedule and see who bites and go from there. I'm realizing I cannot be there for the first couple of hours because we have our event in Meridian Hill Park, the big picnic for displaced foreign affairs feds. So I'll be joining Art All Night on the later side, which is sad for me. Okay, that's it from me. The budget is our next big item. Aaron, do you want to talk a little bit about the spreadsheet that you prepared, which I circulated this morning, and just sort of general approach to how to think about the budget? Since we don't have people here, I don't think we're going to talk brass tacks very much, but let's at least set the frame for our
Yeah,
conversation next week, because we should try to pass it next week if possible.
yeah. We need to pass it by the October meeting, but it's encouraged that we pass it next week. So so maybe what we can do is maybe I'll send out an email that sort of goes through what I'm about to say with a little bit more, and then sort of look for some people's reaction over email, just to make sure we have all questions answered, and then next week at the actual meeting we can have a debate or discussion or whatever, which could lead to an actual passage, hopefully. Um, so yeah, I pulled the spreadsheet that Miguel sent out. I hope the folks have. I pulled in the last 3 years worth of numbers. So the actual spend from FY23 and FY24, the budgeted spend for FY25, and then my sort of best guess forecast on where we're going to land for FY25. I then did a total straw man version of FY26 that was sort of my attempt at, basically holding things steady while rationalizing a couple of the lines that, I think bring it more into sort of what we've actually been doing and are likely to do, while still assuming that FY26 is more ambitious than FY25 actually ended up as. So as folks will notice, we're going to end up sort of underspending FY25's budget by a decent amount, mostly because we didn't do an amount of, sort of grants, communication, sort of, outreachy spending. I think that's totally reasonable. The community engagement committee took a little bit of time to get firing. So I think that's totally fine. But I sort of ended up putting in an FY26 numbers that were above where we're going to finish FY25, with the hope that we can be a little more ambitious on the community outreach and engagement. But it's still not quite at the full FY25 budget number. I, to be clear, have no actual opinions or feelings. This is not at all meant as like Aaron's views or advocacy. I just was trying to give a sort of neutral baseline perspective of where we could start discussion. So yeah, thanks, Miguel. So that's where it stands. I think just to the sort of high level stuff is, we have been drawing down our overall corpus. So we started FY25 with $177,000 in the bank. We're likely to start FY26 with about 161,000. So we drew it down by about 16K. The budget, the straw man budget that I put in here draws it down another 34K. The sort of biggest piece of that, of course, is personnel. So as we talked about, I think on an ECCOM conversation, our personnel spend is greater than our revenue, which I think is totally fine. We're not trying to run a profitable business here. We're trying to, support our community. But we sort of start in the hole just from the personnel, and then the other sort of big expenses are anything that has to do with community support. So that's both communications, which is where, for instance, the Shakespeare in the Park lands, and then Art All Night, for instance, will land in comms, and then also grants, which is sort of actual funds going out the door to community organizations.
Question on that one real quick.
So,
Sorry, when we talk about the grants line item, do direct expenditures
yes.
count in there, or this is like
Yes.
strictly grants?
Yeah, good clarification. So grants as like a financial budget label is not equal to grants as a legalistic disbursement word. So money that we direct expenditure for, like a block party, for instance, which is not a formal grant, still goes in the grant financial line.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
And then, in case people care, well, I know there's a bunch of stuff in here that people might be like, "What is that?" And so I don't know. I can flag a couple, and then I've looked into a bunch of this, so I'm happy to then answer questions if people have them. One thing to note, if you're looking at the FY25 forecast, we have other revenue, and then we have an other line in expenses. That's the AV equipment that OANC reimbursed us for. So we outlaid $41.50 to pay for the AV equipment rental, but then OANC reimbursed us for it, so it goes in as $41.50 expense and then $41.50 revenue. And the reason that our revenue is even a little higher is because of some refunds on Zoom from sort of overpayments from the previous year. So, which then also get booked as other revenue. In other words, so I guess I'll stop there. And I guess I imagine we probably shouldn't do like an actual deep discussion of the budget until we have sort of a bigger group, but I can answer questions that people have about sort of, the numbers themselves.
This is fantastic. Are you going to prepare the budget notes document the same way we have in the years past? Or, I mean, basically just update the one from last year. Is that still a useful tool?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was thinking we could, and we may just better just to go straight to that. I was trying not to be presumptuous about, one random guy just sort of comes up with a budget. But
it's methodical. So I think, from a process perspective, this makes a lot of sense rather than starting with a blank whiteboard and having people just throw stuff at it, which doesn't, it's going to take forever. So, I mean, if you want to prepare the budget notes, update them to match what you've sort of projected here in column F, I think that's a great starting point. It'll speed the discussion next week. Nothing here is catching my eye. Extra budget for comms, great. Extra budget for grants, great. I mean, obviously this is not a commitment, right? It's just sort of our not to exceed value for all this stuff. And you would know better. I mean, we've never spent on local transportation. I don't even know what this point of service maybe or something is.
Yeah, there was like a place where the bunch of the personnel money went there in FY23, and so then there was like a hangover budgeting of it into FY25, but it's nothing we actually spend in. So yeah.
Cool. I mean, this seems very smart to me. If you don't mind doing that, I mean, the spreadsheet is done. Just update the budget notes to match. That line that we created last year, the $10,000 for the promotional stuff for like basically Rice's budget, where is that accounted for? In comms,
I think in comms, yeah.
Yeah, it must be this one here.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I think the basic way, and I could check with Dawn but my understanding from sort of looking through things is that essentially spending that the ANC does is classified under comms, and then sort of money that we just send out for other groups who are doing things goes in as grants. So when when we're manning a table or a booth, or we're sponsoring something, or we're, certainly running an event like Shakespeare in the Park or something like that, then that's comms, which comms isn't the exact right word for it, but it's just what the budget line is called. Whereas when we support a block party, or some other sort of, just help fund some other sort of activity like a garden cleanup or a street cleanup or something, then that's a grant.
Okay. Even so, this makes a ton of sense. I mean, if there is a big ticket item next year, I hope there is, like Shakespeare in the Park. I mean, that just becomes a one-time, vote on a budget amendment like we did this year anyway. So I don't think we even need to think about accommodating that in a specific line item. So this seems great to me. I'm super happy with it. If you can do that by, like, I don't know, Monday, let's say, and send it around for commissioners to review before Thursday,
Yep.
that would be super ideal.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sounds
anything
great.
else on the budget? Anyone have questions, comments? Actually feeling much more painless than I had imagined.
Yep. I only have my regular comment, which I will reserve until till the formal meeting, which is when we spend more than we make, we need to be making it as investments. But I think we are keeping an eye on that, so I'm happy about that.
Okay, much appreciated. Let's go into preparation of the agenda for our next week. I will just bust through a bunch of this stuff very quickly, though it is weighty. Our guest speaker is Sharon Kirschbaum, director of DDOT. You all know that. We submitted a bunch of questions in advance. Her team is aware. That's swell. I think all on track there. I did ask Commander Connors to be present also during the meeting. He said no problem, he'll be there. Matt, up to you whether you list him as a district. May as well put him in the district agencies. I don't think he's going to have anything to present proactively, but good to let people know that he'll be on hand.
Yep.
In fact, Raisa, let's please also point that out in the newsletter that the commander will be attending the meeting and happy to do a little Q&A with the community since there's a lot to queue. Speaking of current events, I am going to move a few resolutions related to the emergency. I think everyone on this call right now is pretty well aware, maybe Aaron less so, and I don't know how much of this you will feel at liberty to participate in, but of course that's always up to you. The first one is the resolution that came out of the ANC Home Rule Caucus, which is condemning federal overreach in DC policing and demanding the immediate.
Sorry, should you just want to clarify that Aaron's rationale would be that he is currently a federal employee?
Correct.
As opposed to lack of interest.
Absolutely.
Yes, highly interested. Yeah, I don't
Yes.
actually know what the line is on. Anyway, I'll think about. Yeah, anyway, highly interested. Strong supporter of DC Home Rule.
Yeah, I know. We just wanted to acknowledge your position, which was not disinterested, but currently a federal employee.
Yeah, thanks.
Right. Plenty of commissioners are grappling with that district-wide, as will surprise no one. I've been hearing from a lot. Excuse me. Anyway, so this is the piece that came out of the Home Rule Caucus, which I also coordinate in my vanishingly small free time. It's a wonderful product. It was a collaborative process. At least 23 other commissions are considering the same resolution. Everyone's going to tweak it a little bit, but basically the message is the same. Very proud that we're going to be able to consider it next week. The idea is to take a big stack of those signed, approved resolutions to a lobby day on the Hill before the expiration of the emergency declarations, coordinating that with Shadow Senator Ankit Jain's office. Lots of fun happening there. I think it's a great product. It's in your email. Please read. The second one I sent out this morning, I believe, regarding the identifiability of federal agents and officers operating in DC. We've all seen lots of videos of federal personnel wearing vests that say nothing, or that say police, or that say federal officer, which I all find kind of offensive. Like, it should at least have the 3-letter agency name so that people know what's happening. I think that's not a lot to ask. There's also some language in there about federal personnel operating with masks on, which of course is something that MPD does not do because it disturbs the community and generally is unnecessary. So please take a look at that. It's basically just backing up what the mayor and the deputy mayor said from the beginning is something they wanted federal counterparts to uphold while they're operating in the district, although clearly it hasn't been enforced uniformly. So we're calling for more attention to that. And the third resolution, which I have yet to distribute, sorry, is about the use of traffic checkpoints for immigration enforcement. Long story here, don't believe it's constitutional, shouldn't be happening. Going to express the community's view, disfavorable view, unfavorable view on that practice. Any questions on those?
No, I think the only thing you and I talked about, and credit to Anthony where credit is due, is the potential inclusion of requesting an exclusion of schools as a zone where
Yes.
ICE or other federal agencies would potentially have a presence.
Yeah. It, happy to dig into. If you want to collaborate, let's talk. I have been consulting with a couple of attorneys on some of these more technical ones, and I would love to run that by them as well, just to clear the language and check the case law and all that kind of stuff that I'm not super well equipped to do. I'll run it. I'll write to them after this meeting, and we can put something together.
Great.
Would be great to do. Next item, something I'm thinking about. Francois has been on my case about this, and I love that. I really, really appreciate it. There's obviously a certain type of opening here with the Safe and Beautiful DC executive order and the Safe and Beautiful Task Force, or whatever it's called, which the Secretary of the Interior is in charge of, at least on the beautification side. I think there's a separate task force on the safe side. And I am getting the sense that that task force is ramping up its activity in terms of identifying sites in DC that need federal investment, NPS properties, and so on. There's a lot to weigh there. There's a lot of unease and unhappiness with a lot of the way that that's being organized, especially again on the safe side. But I do think it's worth at least flagging for the Secretary's office, Meridian Hill Malcolm X Park, obviously, which has been underinvested for a long time. There is a whole vertical in their planning for fountains specifically in the district. So I would love to wave our flag and make sure that somebody's paying attention and sort of explain why this is a priority for the whole district. It's used by everybody, it's historic, all this kind of stuff. Just put together a nice letter or resolution. Haven't written it yet. Can probably write it in my sleep. I have all the talking points about Malcolm X Park taped right here on the inside of my forehead. So I'll put that together before next week if it sounds like a good idea worth doing to everybody here. I do have
Yeah.
a constituent listserv that's only for park related things. So I'm sort of hoping this can kick off some advocacy on their part. Also, just like sending letters to the secretary's office or whoever we determine the proper decision maker to be, just to keep saying Meridian Hill, Meridian Hill, Meridian Hill. So that's fun for me later. But any questions, any qualms?
I was going to say, I think that's a really good idea. I would love to get added to that listserv. I don't think I'm on it.
Oh, it's a fun
Yeah.
one.
Oh, I'm sure. And I know that there's other, you know, parks and such, like, DuPont Circle that are nearby, not in our commission, but that also are very nearby and need investment. So there's also other properties like really small ones, like the really small triangles in my neighborhood, on Vermont Ave, Vermont and T, roughly. And those are MPS. And so it's very difficult to do anything with them, like plant trees or put a bench or something. Um, so
Right.
I would
I
flag
do
that.
believe the rumor mill has told me a couple times now that there is a list being drawn up of triangle parks to just transfer to the district's jurisdiction,
That'd be
which is
great.
something we've wanted for like decades. So that might get done by the stroke of one pen, is kind of the way it's sounding. I don't know a ton about it. So that could be great.
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you guys. Last thing from me is the Global Community Day, a celebration of international service, which has changed names. This is the event that we voted to support this month on August 7th at our commission meeting. This is the sort of large park event for people who've been affected by terminations from USAID, Institute of Peace, NDI, Voice of America, that whole sort of foreign affairs facing complex. The event has taken on the life of its own. I was not expecting maybe quite so much interest. I've been kind of driving this thing in parallel and reached out to some organizations to see if anybody wanted to help. there's been lots of enthusiasm. So now it's sort of a coalition of groups working on it. I think the invite list is going to be pretty big. So I am feeling that I probably need to amp up what I had anticipated before, especially just in terms of like printing additional flyers. I had sort of worked on the rubric that Matt and I used for the Shakespeare in the Park event, which was still pretty local. I put up posters in like, I don't know, a 6 block radius around Meridian Hill, and I thought that was sufficient, and it worked really well for that event. I think the scale of this one is going to be a bit larger, so I might revise the budget a bit and ask next week for additional funding if folks are amenable to that. I am also asking some of the other organizational partners to contribute in some way, although most of them are like pretty informal or just starting to stand up now, like support organizations for people displaced from their jobs. So they don't have a ton of resources of their own. I kind of wanted to just do a temperature check in this meeting and see if people felt like, yes, we could increase the budget a little bit, or we feel like we've invested enough in a single event. And as a reminder, our approval last meeting was a not to exceed budget of $1,700. It did include some padding in there that I could reprogram possibly, but I'm wondering if I have to put together. I didn't put together numbers yet before this meeting. I'm sorry, but maybe another 1,000. I would say extra printing costs, maybe sort of an honorarium for a graphic designer, which I hadn't anticipated the first time, and also one for a videographer to cover the event. I think would be the three priority items. So if people think that seems acceptable, I'll draw up some firmer numbers for next week and present it at commission.
Yeah, I mean, I think having a revised budget with additional detail and justification would make a lot of sense. And then we can discuss and vote at the meeting.
Okay, just putting it on the radar here then. And that is it from me. I don't believe the executive committee has anything aside from the budget, which we already took care of. And then in terms of committees, there are only 2 of you here, so please remember your minutes. Please remember your submissions. In fact, both of you can use the new form. That'll be fun.
I
Francois,
may
you
have
can
missed
handle
this,
the.
and it very well may be in my inbox, but where is the new form?
Oh, it's linked in there in the agenda. I don't think we
Okay.
sent it around by email, so let's do that. Karen, do you mind pushing it out? Although maybe let's do it after the meeting when I've had a second to put the little upload button for the minutes documents. If we could please. Francois, are
Great.
you able to speak to that letter of support on the 1905 9th Street since Stephen will be?
Yeah, there's been some interesting developments with this, but the brief summary is that we have a sort of former neighbor, William Lewis, who lived in the area for a very long time, and owns a house right on Westminster Street. He owned and operated a business called I think it was called 1905, which was at 1905 9th Street, which was a restaurant and bar that many folks in some parts of the neighborhood used to frequent, and it was a popular spot. It sounds like it was before my time. He has had a lot of difficulties recently with a tenant that was operating in the space. The tenant failed to pay rent and was just not a great tenant, it sounds like. So he tried to evict them, and ended up, according to him, spending several $100,000 to ultimately evict the tenants. There was a lot of legal fees. And so now he is trying to do an involuntary transfer of the liquor license from the tenant to himself so that he can reopen 1905. He presented to the ABCR committee, um, and, neighbors like, Frank Chauvin, who's lived in the area, were pretty supportive actually of this. Were familiar with Mr. Lewis and thought that it was a good idea. And the committee voted to support the full commission sending a letter in support of the involuntary transfer of the liquor license. Now, where this gets weird is that we recently received, Stephen reached out to ABCA about this, and they said that no such letter was needed for this involuntary transfer, that the ANC, I can pull up the exact email, but let's see. Yes. Process did not require intervention from the ANC. In fact, the ANC does not have power to stop a transfer, even if they don't support it. They would have to wait until the renewal. You're always welcome to send in a letter about anything, but this isn't needed. So that was a little odd. And the applicant, Mr. Lewis, who's hoping to open the restaurant bar with his daughter, um, had forwarded me a communication with ABCA that seemed to suggest that a letter from the ANC was helpful or maybe needed. So, in any case, the point is merely that the committee voted to support us sending a letter, and hopefully we'll get some more clarity from ABCA about what is actually needed or not needed here from the commission before our meeting.
I suspect that half of Congress would suggest to Miguel that a letter or a resolution from the commission is not needed regarding our present state. And sometimes it's our responsibility to say, it doesn't matter what you think is needed or not. As elected officials, we are going to communicate this message to you. Thank you.
That's fair. That's very fair.
Yeah, well said. I mean, we are allowed to present our views to any district agency, board, commission, whatever. So, we can, whether it's, technically required or not.
Is there
Okay.
is there any conflict here, Francois, between this vote of support and the WNA, Frank, et cetera, or is everybody here pretty aligned?
You know, Frank is on the committee. He was in support. He generally represents the WNA in a lot of these matters. I
Okay.
spoke with the president of the WNA, who is very familiar, knows Mr. Lewis for a long time, did not seem to have any concerns. So I'm not getting the sense that the neighbors have too many concerns about this. Yeah, yeah. So I haven't gotten
Okay.
too much any pushback from this, like I said. Um, Yeah, so I think it's a positive development, a place where that has ties to the community that, seems like it would be a responsible operator. Um, but I definitely think that it's like important to think about this in the context of there are a lot of advocates for the moratorium that say that we can't accommodate any new patronage. And at the same time, we are, I guess, by sending this letter of support, supporting a new business that would have more patrons. So that's all to say that I do think it is notable. But I think I personally support it. I think it sounds like it'll be a great business and it'll help, you know, it'll contribute to the community, which I think is the goal. So yeah,
I, I have
those are just my thoughts.
I had a lot of good experiences at 1905 when they were running. So
That's good
uh,
to hear.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know lots of folks who were very, disappointed when they closed.
Yeah, it sounds like LaJoy Park. A lot of people went there. Yeah, but it seems like a very, very fun spot, family friendly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
This is interesting,
maybe
lying alongside the sort of late night conversation we're having when people are applying, at least technically, to open restaurants, and ABCR is protesting them, I think entirely on suspicion that they're not really intending to operate as bona fide restaurants, although that's
Yeah.
just my supposition. I don't want to speak for the committee. But I mean, I think this sends the right message that there are operators and there are business plans that we are certainly willing to work with and not stand in the way of opening a new business, as long as we're convinced that that they're earnest and they're going to follow the rules.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. I mean, I don't know if I've seen the existing liquor license. And like I said, there's this confusion around this sort of involuntary transfer process, but we can try to reach out to see what the current license looks like. That might be helpful.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
Stephen already
actually,
has that, but I don't remember it coming up.
yeah, do you mind pinging him and making sure it's just on hand for the meeting next week so that we don't have to go
Mhm.
scrambling around looking for it or just not have it.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, thank you. Thanks for knowing the
Yeah.
details, and I'm sure you'll be able to speak to them next week in detail. I did want to talk about the late
Oh,
night
just really quickly,
idea, but
I think Mr. Lewis also wanted to speak briefly at the meeting, so just flagging that
okay.
he wanted to speak about the business.
Got it, Mr. Secretary.
Got it.
Which means I suppose we'll put that first in new business per our custom of hospitality.
Yeah, we've got not a ZPD, a zoning case as well, where I think
Yeah,
the developer slash owner is going to come and present. So we'll put those two first.
cool. Thank you.
Yep.
In terms of Community Engagement Committee, we have two potential sponsorships. The first one I think is pretty easy. It's the Ledroit Park Civic Association. Matt, I'm not sure. I didn't speak to you about this, but I'm sure you must have heard from someone involved in the Civic Association.
I even read the minutes.
Well, I'm sure they were pristine. Knowing the committee as I do. Um, the association asked for $500 for the block party, which made me very happy because last year we sponsored at 125 or something, a small
150.
amount. 150. 500 was, I think, a fair request, in line with other recent block party sponsorships. The committee was just very excited. Obviously, we know the association well. The block party is an annual tradition, so they actually voted to just cover the entire promotional marketing line item in the budget, which was $700. There was a little bit of debate about, the $500 is the value that we gave for the 13th Street block party to, I think, the Vermont Avenue Gardens. So shouldn't we just stay in line with that? But ultimately, the committee just said go for it. And if the commission is really so worried about disturbing a precedent, then they can just knock it back down to $500 again. So I thought that was a very fair debate. It was sort of fun to hear people's views, and the commission can do whatever it chooses next week. That one's kind of a slam dunk, I think. The other one is this welcome back to school event at GP Stay Opportunity Academy. Karen was fantastic in making this connection with the leadership at the school. Karen, I don't know if you want to say anything about it. When we first chatted, I had in my mind that this was a block party, which I was very interested in. Um, I'm not quite clear now the way that the grant application was written, whether it is a block party. The Community Engagement Committee did take a look at the application in some detail, and didn't really feel like the event felt open to the community sufficiently. And I did run this by OANC, and they also flagged that it felt still like a school event, not a like school throwing its doors open to the community event. So there is a question about whether it meets the public interest requirement for us to fund it. That question is kind of on hold because we can't make an expenditure to a school at all, whether through either of the two mechanisms we have for community sponsorships. Normally, the way we do these events is we partner with the PTO at the school, and that's a standalone organization that can accept funds. It just so happens that GP Stay oddly doesn't have a PTO. So our last email exchange was about whether they could find another partner organization. They said using a different school partner, and we're fine with that, but I haven't heard back who they think that might be. And then there is this question about whether it's sufficiently public to be fundable on our end. So all of this to say, I'm going to keep working with them. I just bumped the email chain last night or this morning to see what they're thinking about the partner, and then we can get into the questions about the the openness to the community. I don't know if they don't have another school, a partner organization in lieu of a PTO. Um, I wonder, maybe we would approach the U Street Neighborhood Association and see. Again, that's assuming this is like going to be a sufficiently community-oriented event that if the neighborhood association feels like they could get something out of it, that maybe could be an avenue for us. I don't know anybody else that we could suggest as a community, as an organizational partner.
Those are all great questions for the school team. I can say from what I know, they have a lot of community partners supporting their students. I know that the email has gone unresponded because we have been in the throes of welcoming them back into the building. And I stood outside with some of those people on the emails for a long time yesterday. And we weren't on computers, we were fully human engaged. And so I imagine the response is coming. I also know that their desire is to be a presence in the neighborhood. When I have attended their block parties in the past, they don't turn people away. If they have food, they give food. And it is very much a community spirit in what they're trying to do, knowing where they are and that their school community comes from all over the city. So I think it has always been something that has felt really open and welcoming, and that those are great questions for the school community.
Yeah, I'll circle back with them, like I said, on that too. I'm not sure just glancing really quickly at the grant application again. It's a back to school event. Yeah, the way it says family, student, and staff, I think made it feel a bit closed. I'm also not sure. I don't think they indicated where the event would be held, if it's indoors or this is the event, Karen, we talked about like 2 months ago or so, right? Where they were thinking about doing a block party on V.
Yeah, they were wanting help closing off the street to do this thing. This very,
That's right. We had said that too, and then in the grant application, it said that permits were not required.
I think it's because the application maybe didn't feel easy for them to navigate.
Oh, could that be?
Ask them questions and they will respond.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Issues to work out, just so it's on everyone's radar. When we have Aaron around again, we'll have to talk about whether we need a new form. I mean, that the grant application form comes from OANC. We may need to undertake the project of building our own form that accommodates both grants and direct expenditures and maybe is a little less clunky to use, but this is something we'll find some time for later. Okay, that's all I've got from the CE committee. Thank you, Karen. Matt, I don't think we really need to talk about.
No,
It's
just to
mostly
put
for
it on.
Francois' benefit if we want to talk about the
Yeah, I'm
80/20
just going to
stuff.
basically read it into the record. So we will be resubmitting a thoroughly revised 1617 U Street resolution requesting DemPed's inviting DemPed's engagement with the community. Number of changes, the one that Miguel and I spoke about earlier today, I will weave into it with the help of the committee, and that is the public ownership piece. There has been a lot of conversation amongst the committee and the community about retaining public DC, retaining public ownership of this property and developing it to achieve the district's goals. So I will be sending that around with the minutes tomorrow so that everything's out for public review, and we'll look forward to that discussion. I think we've addressed all of the concerns that were raised by the commissioners at the last meeting. The second item is the U Street bid. Work continues to advance on that. They joined us at the Economic Development Committee meeting at our last week. We are not quite ready, although we are very much supportive, and they are continuing to work with the community to build further support. We're not quite ready to be able to put a resolution of support forward, and I am hopeful that we'll be able to have a resolution crafted for our September Economic Development Committee meeting and presented to the commission for its consideration in October. That would precede the deadline or the reopening of the bid application window, which is October 15th. And so that's a date that we're all working toward. And Councilmember Nadeau has continued to express her support for a completed bid application.
Is that when the clock starts for signatures? They can't, or can they start that in advance of that date?
They are needing to be working on that now, but in part because of, I think, commission's recess, and in part because of the cycle that OTR is on for levying property taxes. October 15th is the kind of the opening of the window. They are hopeful that they can get approval by December 31st from council. That would then allow them to qualify for a bid tax assessment in January, and to be able to receive their first tranche of funding by March, April.
Cool. Okay. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Francois, anything from your committee?
Nothing too urgent from public safety. I mean, obviously there's a lot going on with public safety right now, but it sounds like you've drafted some great resolutions for us, Miguel. The one thing I did want to, couple things I did want to flag were, I think, there's talk about sort of, okay, so yeah, one thing we learned recently was Banneker Recreation Center is not open to youth at currently. It is only open for adults, at least in the indoor portion. So there are outdoor areas of Banneker, but the indoor areas are only for classes right now. And I think that it sounds like DPR has a lot of reasons for this, but I do think it is sort of concerning that our main recreation center in the area has not a lot of youth programming potentially right now, other than, the sort of sports that they do, which fill up very quickly and are, great programs, but maybe not the type of youth engagement that we're hoping to push more. It sounded like there was potentially talk from the mayor about doing late night hype, which I am still trying to get my head around in terms of what those events entail, but they sound like great spaces for young people to hang out, that are safe and that are, social and in person. So I do think that the committee may try to pass a resolution in support of opening up Banneker for those but late night hype events, which I think would be great to have more of. So that is one thing I did want to flag. Um, Also, just that it seems that there are youth who are breaking into Banneker, not into the building itself, but the, outdoor areas, and that are congregating there at night. So we'll see whether that continues with a curfew. But that is just sort of like an issue I wanted to flag. That didn't realize that that was exactly what was happening, but that does appear to be what's happening. It's small groups generally that sort of, hop the fence and go in. So, yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to say was just that, I do think the more I'm hearing, the more I think we need to think about how we can try to push for MPD to have, a greater on the street presence during, Fridays and Saturday nights. I think that the community really wants to see officers out of their squad cars in the midst of things, walking up and down the street, making their presence clear. While I definitely disagree with the way that the federal government is doing it right now, I do think that it is helpful to have real relationships with these law enforcement officers and to see their presence. So, I think that that is like still important. And especially coming from, MPD and not just these federal agencies. I think it's all the more important maybe that MPD is doing its own outreach and showing its face. So, yep, those were just two things that I've been thinking about and that the committee's been talking about some. Yeah, no other updates.
Yeah, you and I had spoken, we just exchanged a text yesterday about a sort of larger resolution that maybe addresses some things with public safety more comprehensively, sort of in the vein. I mean, I didn't explain all that to you quite yet, but what I'm imagining is a piece that kind of sets our policy of what we'd like to see, broadly speaking, right, in terms of public safety. I think there's a little bit of a vacuum there. Like we've addressed a few things piecemeal, right? We've talked about violence interruption programs, but we haven't gone into this stuff about, what do we think policing should look like, and what does community policing mean to us as the voice of the community? What does it look like, right? And it probably means people walking around. It might be the issue of the light bars being turned on the cruisers on U Street, right? Which people don't like. It makes it look like a crime scene, right? I think there are just sort of a collection of those things that we could put together into a product that sort of expresses our general orientation on community policing, really, and approach to public safety, which I think could be very interesting for the committee to engage in that debate and then for us to consider.
Yeah, totally. And one thing I'm still confused by is just that, I definitely, we've talked with Connors and it seems clear that they close off the street in order to better navigate crowds to try to intervene if there are fights or other incidents. But it's sort of unclear why the streets are closed off earlier in the night before the clubs let out. So I don't know. I still think there's more to peel back in terms of the street closures. Like I said, I don't know what the right answer is, but I think there's some more work to do there.
Can I weigh in on that just very briefly? I think it's the right question to ask. I was out on Ninth Street myself on Monday, connecting with a couple of folks, and was talking with one of the establishment owners who said it's a little bit of a kind of self-fulfilling, cycle where they close off the streets. People feel more comfortable pouring into the streets. With more people pouring into the streets, you've now got a lot of people concentrating in that particular area. And his thought was, if we can keep Ninth Street open, people are going to
Hmm.
be able to catch their Uber or Lyft ride more readily. There's going to be less desire to kind of hang out on the street. But I'm
Yeah.
not saying
Yeah.
that he was right or wrong. I just think it adds to your kind of raising the question and saying we should
Hmm.
probably really reevaluate this and bring some other voices and other perspectives along
Yeah.
with MPDs to have a robust discussion.
Sorry, who is that again that you were speaking to?
An establishment owner on
An
Ninth
establishment
Street.
owner. Okay. No, all good. I just wanted to make sure.
I'll follow up with you
Yeah.
offline.
I mean, and also another thing that I would love to ask DDOT about at our meeting, is about like I think we could use crossing guards, traffic control in the area. There are certain nights, I don't know, it seems difficult to predict sometimes, but there are certain nights on U Street where there's a ton of people, especially like Pride weekend, and like things get crazy, and we just really need, like, I think somebody out there, it doesn't have to be the police, it can be DDOT, but just like protecting pedestrians, directing cars, showing that like the government is actually trying to make these intersections orderly and safe. And I like, yeah, I just think it's kind of crazy that things get so hectic and there's nobody there to actually do anything about it. So, I think that's something I want to keep banging that drum on. So hopefully I can hear what DDOT has to say about it at the meeting, what they think of the idea.
Great.
Yeah, please raise it with the director. Don't forget. Final thing, and let's jump in just a couple minutes max. The Westminster Playground event. We can
Yeah,
socialize it with one more commissioner right now.
lovely. Well, this is for you, Matt.
Ah,
Harold, even turn on my camera again. Yeah, basically, I've just been really wanting to help sponsor a block party on Westminster at the little playground that we have here. It's got a beautiful fountain and water feature, and it's really nice. And the neighbors have put so much work into it, along with the city. And I think it would be great to sponsor this block party through the WNA. They could apply for a grant, and we could provide them funds. I think that's the best vehicle, but I'll have to talk with Miguel more about that. But basically, with the idea that we could, the three goals being to bring joy to young children, always good, build more in-person relationships between the community and um, community stakeholders. And by community stakeholders, I mean the government, the DC government, I mean churches, I mean businesses, I mean nonprofits, community-based organizations. Like, I want to invite a lot of people. I think it's always great to just like meet people in a more informal setting and just establish a relationship. And, I think, there's a lot of tensions in my area and there's a lot of things that come to a fore. So I think it's like a great meeting place at the playground to talk about all that. Um, and then, yeah, also just to spread awareness about the playground, because I think there's a lot of families that maybe don't know it's there, that have young kids, that maybe, just live not that far, but like they don't know that there's this great spot that they can bring their kids to. And so I want to like, make sure that more people are using this resource, because I've heard from neighbors that they're always surprised by how few people come there. Seems like there should be more kids there, and it is kind of tucked away. A lot of people never go on Westminster Street, or they don't know that it has a water feature, which we're eyeing October, so the water feature will probably be off, but can always like tell people about it.
You know what you could do? You could
Yeah.
host it a week earlier because that raises the chance it might be on, and I could attend.
Mm,
oh my God.
You can help me do all the planning to get it done a week
Oh,
earlier.
great, even better. All right.
Yeah, but are
Well,
targeting Saturday, October 25th, or a week before, but there are things that need to get done. So, I I'm not sure how this would work, Miguel, but is the idea that the WNA should apply for a grant, we would share the costs for, the grant would be from the ANC and the WNA would also pitch in money, and then this would help cover the cost of the event, which could range from a bouncy house to food to some sort of, outreach, entertainment, if that's permissible, things like that. And that
yep.
cost could be shared with the WNA.
Yeah, easy to do, and you have all the recent guidance on the loosening of the food restrictions and the entertainment and stuff. So,
I may need my ChatGPT lawyer to help me sort through all that, but
oh, member of the bar? Hmm.
there's enough
Yeah,
lawyers who
no,
live in my area. I'm sure I can find somebody.
right. Yeah, I think it's very straightforward. This is like bread and butter
Yeah,
event for OANC.
cool,
So, yeah,
cool. Okay.
we'll get it done. Okay, I want to keep us to an hour, so
Yep,
unless
totally.
anything else is on fire,
Can I
Aaron,
just
Raisa, yeah,
can I just do a quick shout out to our lone attendee, Anthony Robertson, for
yes,
joining
Anthony.
us in August and saying
Yes,
thank you.
you're invited to the block party. Of course, if that was ever a question.
Okay, anyone else? Going once, going twice. Okie doke. See you all next week. Talk to you
Happy
guys about the
happy
agenda
happy
September.
holiday
Yeah.
weekend, everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
indeed. Have some fun.
Done.
Thank you
Bye,
guys.
guys.